So as always, please find your Q&A icon and go ahead and start typing your questions into the Q&A, and I'll just give a couple of informational updates. And there were a couple of questions that we ran out of time for last Friday, so I definitely want to respond to those before I start going to the new questions this week. So first thing, just want to apologize that the weekly communication has not gone out yet. Variety of reasons, short week, trying to make sure that I had the items in there that I wanted. And I was waiting on an update that's going out, if it hasn't already, from OMS on the provider listserv. I wanted to also include that. So I will give a little verbal update about what information pertains to this group that you're going to see in that informational notice that will go out today. The weekly notice will go out today. And it will include a couple of items that will be of particular interest to this group. One is that your community case managers, BI care coordinators were facing a challenge in the PCP where they couldn't invite you to submit service implementation plans. That was officially resolved last Friday night. It deployed into the production environment last Friday night. So they've been able to stop using the workaround where they were having to create duplicate waiver services in the PCP to invite you to submit service implementation plans. And that, I think, was also that workaround, I think, was artificially creating some additional challenges for you where some of your goals weren't showing up on your SIPs that were being created because we had neglected to tell them that when they created the duplicate waiver service that they needed to link up the goals again as well. So hopefully that's all ironing itself out this week for you, and you're seeing some improvements there. So that will that information will be included in the email that will go out today. And then the other piece that will be highlighted in the communication that will go out today, which also is what I was waiting for on the OMS side and will be going out by the provider listserv, is OMS, and hopefully I'm not stealing their thunder. This is I think a big win for them, but they implemented a fix on the provider portal on the electronic data interchange file, so that those Evergreen or LTS PAs that had 17 digits will now process without denial. So any claims which you had previously submitted and that had that LTS 17-digit number and they denied with that reason of not found, those can now be resubmitted and they should process without trouble. And any that you hadn't processed that you were holding that had that 17-digit number can now be processed, and those should go through their electronic data interchange without any challenges now. So that's really exciting. So I think from that perspective, and then the change that we made in Evergreen a couple weeks ago, where now all new PAs that, well, I guess it's been more than a couple weeks, it's been about a month now, all new PAs that were created moving forward from, I think, March 16th have a 15-digit number. You should no longer see any challenges with submitting your claims to MIMS with either 17-digit or 15-digit numbers. So that's very, very exciting. So those were the informational updates I wanted to give this morning. And then I did also just want to remind everybody that we are scheduled for production deploy tonight. That will occur at 5:30. The system is usually offline for a few hours during that period. And then I think I mentioned on last Friday's call, the items, there aren't a ton of items that are deploying in this that are specifically related to this group. There are some, though, that are related to the community case manager role and the person-centered plan. That will be very exciting for the community case managers, BI care coordinators, and likely will also positively impact you because they'll have the ability to revise PCPs that they haven't been able to revise, because we are again, as long as everything goes well, I can't make any of these promises that these will be deployed, but these are planned for deploy so long as the deploy goes well and there are no issues found. But we are hopeful that the correct PCPs will be marked as the active plans after tonight, which will be a huge help for your community case managers, care coordinators. And we're also hopeful that they were also seeing in a couple of areas in the PCP, they were getting some error occurred, so they weren't being able to set plans to complete because of that. So we're hoping that that also gets resolved tonight. So few changes to the PCP that should be big wins if all goes well. And then there is one item that is planned for the deploy tonight that would impact this group. It's related to the employment data form. There were a couple of conditional fields if a person was receiving work support or employment specialist services during the quarter that the report is being entered for. There should have been some conditional questions to capture the number of hours of supports or services that that individual received under one or both of those if they were receiving those. So if, again, if the deploy goes as planned and is successful, that should be resolved tonight as well. So next week on Monday at the agency support person meeting, I won't be here. I'm going to be out of the office for a couple of weeks, but Lisa Merrill will be leading that call and she'll share with your agency support people whether or not these things truly did deploy as planned and are now resolved in the production environment. So before I jump to the Q&A from today, I do see we get some questions queuing up. Thank you guys so much. I have, I think, 4 questions that I didn't get to last week that I did want to circle back to and respond to. The first one was, and these are in no particular order here, but the first one was a question about how long it takes for new agencies to gain access to Evergreen. That's a great question. I think it probably depends on a couple of different factors. So if you're brand new to providing waiver services, you likely need to go through Office of Main Care Services to enroll as a waiver service provider. And then once you go through that process, or there's a few steps in that process, once you submit your enrollment case, it gets reviewed by somebody at OMS. And then if all of the content is there, it comes over to ODES. And we then complete our portion of the approval process to approve you for whatever waiver services you're seeking to provide. And then it goes back to OMS to complete the contracting phase of that process. But at that time, when it goes back to OMS, they set the flag on it to a certain status that will make your record available in Evergreen for us to create your organization and or your location. So that process can take several weeks, depending on, staffing, backlog, things like that. And then once your organization or your location is set up, the addition of new users and staff at your location can be relatively quick. So as long as you've submitted your new user request forms and we don't have any questions, we can get those set up within a business day or 2. And I know at last week's call, actually, I don't know if it was at the Friday call or the Tuesday call, so apologies if it wasn't this group, but somebody had mentioned that they had submitted some new user request forms, but their new users had still not been set up. So I did check, and we do not currently have a backlog of new user setups. So if you have an organization and or locations that exist already in Evergreen and you just need to add staff, all you need to do is simply submit a new user request form to evergreen.dhhs@maine.gov, and we'll get those set up for you within a day or 2, depending on other support requests that are coming in and that kind of thing. There was also a question last Friday that was related to whether or not the rate could be added to the PA utilization report. I think I mentioned this on the call, but I did want to respond again just in case I didn't, but yes, we did understand that request and receive that request from actually a couple of different people. So I have submitted that up to our report writing team group to see if we could also get that added. It is a little bit more complicated to add some of these additional fields that you're requesting. They just come from a different area of the system. And so it may take a little while for us to get it there, but it is on the list. We are working on it and we will try to get it there just as soon as we can. And then there was also a question around reportable events and specifically migrated reportable events and needing to do provider follow-ups. I know I've mentioned this on a couple of different calls, but I did want to make sure that this individual and anybody else who still wasn't aware of this, as a reportable event provider, you cannot see the reportable events that migrated from EIS, because when we migrated those reportable events, they did not have the they migrated with a generic organization attached to them, which is like an admin type organization. So because of the way our access control works, you as external reportable events providers cannot see them because it appears that they were created by somebody, an organization other than your own. It has all of the right data on it. It's just that you can't see it. Because of this kind of behind the scenes database field that is preventing you from seeing it from an access perspective. That said, you do still need, if you did not complete your provider follow-up, you do still need to complete your provider follow-up. There is a paper form that is available for you to complete. It's in the help center of Evergreen, and you can go grab that, fill that out, and then you can submit the filled out form to evergreen.dhhs@maine.gov, and someone from my team will get that entered into Evergreen for you. So definitely do that if you haven't done that already. The question was, where do we send the completed forms, and do we still need to do it? Yes, please do them and send them to evergreen.dhhs@maine.gov. And then there was one final question that I didn't get to that I wanted to, which was around whether or not the person that does billing in your agency needs to do anything specific to get notifications when new authorizations are generated. And you were asking because you weren't receiving any notifications. The notifications for approved prior authorizations are turned off temporarily right now. There were some challenges with that notification, as well as the invitation for service implementation plans. Unfortunately, the way the system was configured, instead of sending those notifications just to the individuals within your organization that had those specific roles, they were actually sending to everybody in the system that had those roles. So it was creating a lot of confusion and a lot of clutter, and people receiving a ton of notifications that weren't for their organization. So we shut those off while we're working to resolve that issue. It has been escalated as an urgent issue, but it is quite a large fix that is required to turn those back on. So we are still working on that. FEI is still working on that. We hope to get that out to you in the next coming few weeks, but I don't have a specific date for when notifications will be turned back on. So for right now, you would just need to go in daily, every other day, whatever frequency you want, and pull that PA utilization report to see what new PAs have been approved or authorized for your organization. So I think that covers the items from last week that I didn't get to. So I will pop over into the Q&A here and see what I can help answer live on the call. So there's a question about self-directed and waiver services and whether they can be identified on the same goal. So I think there's two ways to answer this question. I think you're asking something a little bit different than what I'm going to say initially. So within the PCP, there can be one or many goals, And under each individual goal, one or many services can be linked to that goal. So yes, a goal can have a self-directed service and a waiver service linked to it. But as a provider, you are going to receive a distinct service implementation plan for each unique combination. So you will receive if there is a goal that has both a self-directed and a waiver service, or maybe that's not a good example for a provider. If there is a goal that has two waiver services linked to it, you as the provider would actually receive two separate service implementation plans, one for each service, but each of those service implementation plans would show the same goal on it because each of those services was linked to that goal. So the reason for that is because each service is going to need its own plan, service implementation plan. So you'll get a distinct SIP for every waiver service that your organization is being invited to provide that service implementation plan for. Cindy is indicating that she's still having an issue not receiving invites to edit and service implementation plans. Yeah, so invitations, notifications are still turned off, Cindy. So we are still requesting that community case managers, BI care coordinators, please notify providers when they're being they're being invited to submit a service implementation plan, or they're being asked to edit a service implementation plan. So Lisa, if you could just jot down on for Monday's call to remind the agency support people about this. And maybe I should add something to the communication before I send that out today as well, just reminding
Sure.
managers and BI care coordinators to please let providers know because they're still not receiving those invitations.
Yeah, I absolutely will.
Oh, thank you, Miranda. There also seems to be some confusion with regards to whether a paper service implementation plan can be submitted if we are unable to enter the needed information. Yeah. So paper service implementation plans should only need to be submitted and only required to be submitted if you're a brand new provider who does not have access to the person's record. So if you're a provider who has been providing services to the individual, you should have a waiver provider assignment to that person's record, and you should be able to navigate to that person's record, go to the person-centered plan custom list page, and go into the PCP that has your SIP attached to it, click on the SIP tab and populate your SIP form there, or revise your SIP form from there. If the person is seeking you as a brand new provider, you will not be assigned to the person record yet. So you will not have that waiver provider assignment, and you will not be able to navigate to the person record. So that is the time when you would have to fill out a paper version of the service implementation plan. Now, I do believe that there were still some challenges with assignments that have not been ironed out yet. So I think there is an issue that was escalated and has not been resolved yet, where when a community case manager or a BI care coordinator revises a plan for annual planning, I think the system is erroneously auto removing active providers assignments. So there may be a situation where you're still actively providing services for the next, 2 or 3 months under the current active plan, and your case manager or your care coordinator has revised the plan for the annual planning, and the system has automatically removed you erroneously. We do have the ability to add those assignments back manually. So I believe that, those are being reported and we're helping to manually add those back until that issue is resolved. But there may be a situation where your community case manager or your BI care coordinator requests you to do a paper form because of something like that. But in general, you as a actively assigned provider should be able to navigate to the person record and fill the SIP form out. And that is what we want you to do. We want those forms filled out in the system. The paper forms being attached does not effectively populate the system with all of the service implementation plan details the way we need it in the system in order for all the forms to work together nicely. So we only want paper forms filled out for those workaround situations. There is some information being shared with me as an FYI. We now have an unmet needs report that has 181 people that we don't
Yeah,
see.
Leslie, I see several people have mentioned this. I can take that back.
Can you so these are, can you check the provider roles and make sure that that report is not added to them?
Yeah, I absolutely can.
Thank you, Chris. We'll take that back and get that report removed for now until we can figure that out. Bridget is saying, Ken and Will Oates issue notice explanation of impact of Evergreen to be shared with individuals, supported families, etc., so it can be shared. Not sure exactly what you're requesting there, Bridget. I see you have another one here. Any updates on compiling information provided in the variety of formats information is being provided? Add to the manuals. Can tools be updated as changes are made and be put in the help center? Not sure exactly what your question is related to issuing a notice or explanation of impact.
I think she's looking for something that they can share with families and guardians around the stuff that's happening now with,
Oh, okay.
the impact it's having on delays,
Okay.
stuff like that. I think that's what I interpret that as.
Okay. Yes. Great. We can certainly take that back, Bridget, and see if there's some sort of talking points that can be shared with all of our users that can, filter their way down to the clients that we're serving related to some of the delays that some of the challenges are causing and those types of things. So, and then to your second question about, sort of these workarounds and whether or not tools, manuals, and documentation can be updated and added to the help center. Yes. So the workarounds, well, maybe I'll work my way backward. Tools are definitely on our list to be updated. So things like the person-centered planning manual and, other sort of desk level procedures, guides, documentation that we have out there that references like the EIS system and or the EIS old processes. We do have individuals that are attempting to work to update those tools. Unfortunately, they're the same group of individuals who are trying to support you right now. So we're trying to answer your questions. We're trying to, analyze issues that you're reporting. So it is a challenge for us to get those updated timely. But as we are able to update some of those documents and tools, we are putting them in the help center. And then along the lines of some of these workarounds, the best way that we're being able to share that information with you is through the weekly emailed communications. So I'm trying to add like a Q&A section with information about that. And for those where we are providing instructions, we're trying to create quick tip guides with the workaround instructions and putting those up in the help center. We don't want to incorporate the workarounds into our official documentation because they should be temporary and we should be resolving them, and we don't want to have to go back and edit like the PCP manual later to reflect the true end state. So we are working on it. I know it's not as speedy as you'd probably like it to be, but we are doing the best that we can to balance being able to respond to all of the email support questions that are coming in, preparing for these meetings, entering issues and escalating those with our provider. Some of our team is analyzing issues when they come in from you to see if they need to be escalated, resolving some of those ourselves. Some of the issues we have the ability to resolve ourselves, and so our team is working on those. So it is quite a lot that's on our plate, and we are trying to prioritize those things the best that we can. There was a question here about Derek had mentioned a meeting with ICFs about usage of Evergreen. ICFs don't have case managers. Any update on this meeting? I'm not aware of that meeting. I don't know if Derek's on the call and can speak to it. But I certainly can take that back and ask him if he knows of a specific meeting for ICFs. But you are correct, Allison. ICFs don't have the case management role in Evergreen. And so my understanding is that in EIS world, a lot of the sort of process related to case management was submitted to us on paper, and somebody from our staff helped data enter that into the EIS system. I think that's the expectation here now in Evergreen is, as ICF providers and users of the system, you have the ability to enter your reportable events and your provider follow-ups, but anything else would need to be submitted to ODES, and we would have to data enter that for you. So behavior management plan, safety device approval packets, those should be going to our ODES crisis email address as an ICF. All other users don't need to do that. I know we talked about it last week. PCP data entry role still can't do the BMPs in the system on their own because of the attachments. And I know even the case managers indicated that they were still having a challenge with the signature page on BMPs, I think, or something along those lines last week. So we'll look into that. But as an ICF ongoing, you will continue to use that previous process and submit to our ODES crisis team through that email address. And then as it relates to person-centered plans and things like that, the last conversation that I had was definitely that if you needed to submit any of that sort of content, that it would need to be done on paper, and someone from our staff would need to enter it under the current state. So I will definitely follow up with Derek and see if there is a plan to have a meeting to discuss that with you guys separately, and we'll try to get back to you next week on that. Tammy's asking if they're going to turn the notification of new authorizations back on so they show up in the notifications page. Yeah, we will, Tammy. Still working on it. Again, it's a very complicated fix, a pretty involved fix for the product. So the structure of the way the notifications module was built, it's going to need quite a significant enhancement in order for the notifications to work properly. So it is going to be several more weeks before we're able to resolve that and turn that back on for you, but we are working on it. Update on behavior management plans being put directly in Evergreen. Yeah, so I was just mentioning that. So we did deploy a fix for behavior management plans on April 5th. So community case managers and BI care coordinators should be able to enter the behavior management plans at this time. But I think I did hear a challenge last Friday with setting those to complete. So I need to circle back on that and make sure that CCMs and BI care coordinators truly can. As provider users, you could create a BMP now. The problem is that I don't believe you can attach all the attachments that need to be added to it yet because of the outstanding attachment issue that we're still working on. Hopeful that attachments issue will be resolved in the next week or so, and then you'll be able to enter your own behavior management plans. But as a provider user, you still do need to ask your community case manager or your BI care coordinator to submit your BMP for you. But they should be able to create the form, add the attachments, and then hopefully set that to complete. I will track that to follow up on that and make sure that that's true. In a reportable event, it asks who will complete the 30-day provider follow-up with a drop-down menu of options. None of the options are titles of our staff. Who should we be clicking on, as this is a required field? We are able to and do the follow-up report. However, the question of who we assign to is confusing. Yeah, that has come up several times, Brandy. I guess that is a really confusing question, and apparently it is a required question. So I think we have an issue already logged for that. But I will also copy this down. If it is required, and you are the agency that will be doing the follow-up, I guess at this point, just select one of the options in order to set your reportable event to complete, and then go ahead and, fill out the follow-up on your own. That question was intended to be answered if you weren't going to be the one doing the follow-up, and then you would be identifying who was going to do the follow-up. So I think it's just, I think the issue is that it just shouldn't be required if you yourself are going to be the person doing the provider follow-up. So I think we may just need to add an option, or if it's required, we should add an option that says that you will be that we will be filling out the provider follow-up. So Steph also added, her understanding is that this question is related to events that should have been reported by another agency. Yeah, agreed, Steph. So like the agency responsible. So I agree, Steph. I think that that's exactly what it's supposed to be for. It's supposed to be a question that's answered if, the event should have been reported by another agency, and they should be doing their own reportable event provider follow-up. But I think it's just a required question every time they fill out a reportable event. So I think we need to make sure that we either make it a conditionally required question, or we add an option to that pick list that says, we're the responsible agency. So, Lisa, I hate to put another thing on your plate, but would you also just jot down and see if there is an issue in the tracker related to that? And if not, we probably should get one in there.
Yeah, I'll take a look.
Will the new provider using the paper SIP be temporary? Yes. So that workaround for brand new providers who've never provided have not been providing services to an individual that's being invited to submit a service implementation plan. That is also a temporary workaround. It's another one of those more complicated fixes. So it is going to take several more weeks for us to resolve that, but it is an issue that has been escalated as an urgent issue. And ultimately, the resolution to that will be that as a waiver provider who is not actively providing services to the person, you would you would be able to access that service implementation plan from your location page under the forms and lists. There's a forms and plans list page under your location. So ultimately, you would, again, once notifications get turned back on and once this issue gets resolved, you would get a notification that would say you've been invited to submit service implementation plan. When you click on the notification, it would direct you to your organization's location page, the location that's being invited. And you'd see a forms and lists, like a list of service implementation forms, and you'd be able to open the form from there and populate it. And then once you've submitted it, the community case manager or BI care coordinator had reviewed it with the person, and the person had approved your plan and selected you as the provider, the community case manager or the care coordinator would add you as the provider on the waiver service, and the system would then auto assign you to that person's record as a waiver provider. And then you can access that service implementation plan form from either of the locations. You can continue to access it from your location form list page and make edits there, or fill out service implementation plan forms there, or you can navigate to the person's record and go to the person-centered plan custom list page, and then go into the PCP and just click on the SIP tab. So it will give you two avenues once you've been assigned. But yes, ultimately we will have a solution to that. It's that this one's just much more complicated, and it's contingent on resolving the complicated notification issue and this complicated make the form available from the location list page, not from under the context of the person. So unfortunately, it will take several more weeks for us to resolve that, but we are working on it. Are service providers required to complete service implementation plans for support broker? The fee for goods and services. So these sound like the section 29 self-directed services, and I think section 18 is also going to start if they haven't already started authorizing these services. I do not know the answers. I can't remember the answer to that question right offhand. I don't know if Derek or Emily or anybody on the call knows whether service implementation plans are required for self-directed services related to support broker and goods and services. Looks like Emily's trying to chime in. Thank you, Emily. So no, not required. It sounds like they're not required, Jenna. There is a question, or more of a statement, about we completed a reportable event recently, and unless we missed it, there's no place to add another individual who witnessed the incident. In a meeting, I thought there was a mention of adding an option of other, which would allow us to add the DSP working with the individual instead of just the few staff that were migrated from EIS. Yes, you definitely can do this. Let me see if I can get into the system really quick and do a screen share. So under the witness and participant section, you would add witness and participant, and you need to scroll, but if you scroll, there's an option down here of other. This allows you to enter the person's first name, last name, title. Relationship, probably other DSP role, if that makes sense, and whether they were participant or witness. And then, so that's how you can fill out, like, somebody who's not a contact on the person record, not an active user of the system, like doesn't have an account into the system, or is not like you yourself or the person or something like that. You can also add multiple witnesses and participants. So, once you've added one, you can go ahead and add another one. So you might be able to pull in, yourself, like if you're the reporter, you might be able to do that, that kind of thing. So hopefully that answers your question and helps out there. CCM is asking for a paper SIP because they aren't sure how to link goals to the service types, but we otherwise have access and can see the SIP. I reached out to the HCBS email, but haven't gotten a response. Can I get someone to connect with me on this? Nancy, would you take that one? I think I did see that email come through the evergreen.dhhs at email box. It's Hannah Pullen is asking about that. It sounds like whoever the CCM is telling them that they need to fill out a paper SIP because they don't know how to link the
Yeah,
correctly, the
I
services.
was gonna ask if she could send me a direct email. It'd just be
Yeah.
much easier.
Yeah.
So if Hannah could send me,
Yeah, Hannah, can you forward that email directly to Nancy?
and it's nancy.j.kitchen with an IN at maine.gov.
Awesome. Yeah. And I don't know if Angela needs to reach out or somebody on Angela's team, but if you could work with.
Yeah, I see another one down below too. I want you to, people, if you are struggling with finding your SIPs, working on SIPs, getting SIPs, please send a message to that evergreen.dhhs at maine.gov email, and we'll get you in and we'll work with you.
Excellent. Thank you, Nancy. Okay, so another question about the BMP. Will there be written instructions in the help center? I work with an agency staff managing BMPs who had no idea about accessing Evergreen, including adding BMP to Evergreen. They received no notification of this process. So, I believe that there was training provided for entering behavior management plans. And the link to the trainings are out on our Evergreen project website. There's so if community case managers and BI care coordinators, it was under one of the three. That was a 3 series training for them because they have a lot of forms and plans that they edit. And then for PCP data entry role, I believe it was included under your training as well, as to how to fill out the BMPs. There currently is no step-by-step instructions for that form, but it is on the list of items that we would like to try to create a instructional guide for. The form itself is pretty straightforward, and the process has not changed. It's the same process as you currently or as you previously completed. So whatever documentation, forms, fields that you were being required to provide under the ODS crisis email and that process, it's the same exact process that you should be completing in Evergreen. So I think there may even be something out on the ODE's website that describes like what documentation and what that process is. It just probably doesn't refer to Evergreen. But we can certainly take that back and try to make sure that we get the process documented as it relates to Evergreen for you. Can you please send the step-by-step instructions to modify the plan in absence of an invite? I'm having some difficulty making edits. I think this is related to service implementation plans. So, yeah, there's no step-by-step instructions yet for service implementation planning process. This is one that we've marked down as we want to create those step-by-step instructions. But again, the form and the process is the same as it was in EIS. It's just maybe a matter of locating the service implementation plan forms in Evergreen or being able to find that form in Evergreen. But the form itself mirrors the form that was in EIS. So it's the same expectations, the same data is expected there and the same process is expected.
Leslie, just minus that one minor glitch last week when service implementation plans were sent while we were doing that workaround. They did look a little different, and moving forward, they should all look the same.
Yeah, they should show your goals and all of your data from the PCP. Yeah, thank you, Nancy.
And that will address a lower question as well.
Okay. Question about reportable event. You have to enter a witness participant, but if your staff reporter is reporting under hearsay and no other staff was involved, there's only participant and witness option. Not sure I'm following. I don't know, Steph, if you're following and you can help me answer Shirley's question about reportable events.
I would need to look at that. The drop downs there have boggled me a little bit about what you get when you select. I'll take a peek, but
we'll take that one back, Shirley, and we'll try to respond to you in next Friday's call, or because I don't think we'll probably be able to respond within the next few minutes. So we'll add it to the items to respond to on next Friday's call, and Steph will try to take a look at that for us. Thanks, Steph.
I think this is the one that they've seen a couple different SIPs, and
the one from Paul.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Paul, this is hopefully we've answered your question here, but if not, please feel free to reach out directly to Nancy if there's still some challenges here with service implementation plans. Hope you're doing well. We miss you. Tammy's saying, I've been choosing service provider when entering the DSP as other. Is this not correct? So, service provider as the, as the relationship. I think it was relationship. Yeah, that's fine, Tammy. If there's one in there for service provider, definitely select service provider. That's totally fine. I may have just made a bad example, so apologies if I created some confusion, but if you are trying to add a direct service provider, a DSP, you can select the option of other under witness and participant, and then under the relationship, there is apparently one that's a choice for service provider. You can select that. You don't need to select other like I did in my example. So apologies if I created some confusion. Thank you. I'm having the same issue with the CCM who cannot populate the goals, Cynthia. So Cynthia, yeah, just go ahead and email Nancy. She'll try to help out there. Follow-up question to psychological consultation and service implementation plans. We have been assigned a service implementation plan to complete an Evergreen for psychological consultation. Believe this is holding up our plan approval. How do I get help on this? So Emily, is this, so psychological consultation, this is one of the G services there. Is this a service that should not require a service implementation plan? Is that something you can chime in on? It sounds like maybe that's the case and the system is automatically creating a SIP. We've had a community supports program. I'm going to skip down to the next one and hopefully we can circle back to that question, Dawn. We've had a community supports program change of address. In EIS, we had to create a new service implementation plan for change in service address. In Evergreen, the address automatically changed on SIPs and auths. Some community case managers are telling us we don't need to do anything. I'm not sure how to proceed and who would be able to answer this. Yeah, this is one of the great benefits of Evergreen is if your service location address changes, you update that in MIMS, it will in your NPI +3 doesn't change, your address updates, it will automatically flow into Evergreen and update everywhere in Evergreen. So you don't have to refill out any of your documentation. It will just now reflect the new appropriate address on all of the records and forms, which is fabulous. We do have a few minutes left. I don't know if Emily was able to help me with your question, Dawn. So we will definitely take that one back just in case we don't get to it today, and look into that. I do see that Heidi's hand is up. I don't know, Heidi, if you're able to, if you wanted to chime in on something I was just saying, or if you're able to enter something into the Q&A.
I was gonna answer the question about the consults. They don't need SIPs, just like AT.
Okay, so they do not need service implementation plans? Okay.
No.
Could not hold up the process. It could be able to continue right through.
Yeah, they should be able to, even if the system is auto-generating the service implementation plan form erroneously, the case manager should be able to just close that SIP form and set the PCP to complete. So it shouldn't hold up the PCP process, but we can certainly look into and take back like a change so that it's not auto creating those. So because maybe it's creating some confusion for that case manager or care coordinator. So we can definitely look at the list of services. Lisa, just for your knowledge, since I'm going to be out for a couple of weeks, that should be an attribute in the service definition module under the administrative module. So we should be able to go into those services in our administrative module and remove the attribute that would be causing the SIP to auto-generate. But yeah, your community case manager or your care coordinator should be able to just close that SIP form out. Or if they don't have I think they have the workflow to close them out, but if they don't have the workflow to close them out for some reason, our team can support that, or they could just attach a document that says service implementation plan not required, and set it to plan complete and move forward. So there are a couple of options for that until we're able to get that resolved. Maybe again, if Emily's still on the call or Alexi or somebody, if one of you guys could provide a list of services that should not require service implementation plans for each of the waiver services, that would be helpful. And then Lisa or Jean or somebody from my team could go in and modify that so that the system's not auto-generating service implementation plan forms for services that don't require them. So, shockingly, we've gone through all the questions and we still have 4 minutes left. I'm so proud of us. I think we've actually caught up to a cycle where I can answer all of your questions during the call, which is amazing. I know we did have to take a couple of away that we didn't have an answer for. I did jot those down. We will try to circle back to those next Friday with answers for you at the start of the call. And then, as I mentioned, I will be out for a couple of weeks, but the calls will still proceed in my absence, just like when I was out a couple weeks back. So it will be a group effort the next couple of Fridays. Lisa will lead, but Derek, Emily, Alexi, Nancy, Steph, we'll have lots of different people on the call who will be able to kind of help respond to each of their respective areas and the questions that are coming up around their respective areas. And then any questions that they are unable to answer, they will take back and try to research and get back to you on the following Friday or when I get back in the office a couple weeks from now. Yes, Jamie, the production system deployment is scheduled for 5:30 tonight. So the system will be offline for a few hours this evening, probably between 5:30 and 8:30. It should be back online again after 8:30. There are some additional permissions changes that are required by my team after that. So for community case managers and BI care coordinators, so those might not get entered until first thing on Monday morning. And that's related to some of those PCP changes. So I would definitely say by 7 a.m., 8 o'clock on Monday, all the changes will be fully integrated for your use, but just as an awareness on that. But the system will be back online. So if you need to enter like reportable events or things like that, the system will be back online around 8:30 this evening. All right. Well, with that, I don't see any additional questions. Everybody have a great couple of weeks without me, and I will see you again when I return the week of the 6th. So I think it's May 10th. I'll be back with you on that call. Good luck.
And-
Thanks, everybody.
Enjoy your time off.